Miami Hurricanes have a handful of signees and commits performing at Under Armour All-America. So how are they doing? Let's find out.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Donno, your host. I'm a University of Miami alumnus, longtime South Florida sports radio vet, and contributor to allhurricanes.com. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen, or in this case, your second listen. Bonus episode. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. Let's bring on our pal, John Garcia Jr., head of football recruiting at Sports Illustrated. He's been very busy covering Under Armour All-America. And John, Happy New Year to you, Mr. Garcia. How are you?
Yeah, Happy New Year, Donald. Doing well. Can't complain. We got some unbelievable college football playoff games, and obviously we got to see the next wave get after it at Under Armour. So best of both worlds.
And guys, keep in mind, every time John Garcia joins us, he's brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. They help you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. John, in the morning episode, I talked about Rueben Bain, who, to the surprise of no one who listens to or watches the show, he's been performing really well at the Under Armour practices, and he's been turning heads out there. What have you seen from Rueben Bain so far at UA All-America?
Alex, he's been complete. I think that's really my biggest takeaway. First, from a physical standpoint, way back on the 29th at Media Day, Rueben Bain walks in and he commands your attention from a height and weight perspective. 6'2", about 265 pounds, but he's well filled out. It's a balanced, well-proportioned 265. And then on the field, you get more of that balance. The pads finally came on day 2, day 3, and beyond. And he was able to assert his dominance in multiple ways. But the first, again, foundational way was with that power, that frame that he possesses. So he was able to bull rush against, tackles that are 40 pounds heavier, but the leverage and power he brings and generates is enough to push them off of their spot. And then he can read and react from there. Had a lot of tackles for loss in the team session and one-on-ones, was able to win the edge more times than not. And then as the week went on, you saw a little bit more balance from him, able to work some counter moves. He used his hands incredibly well at the point of contact, which is really important when you're talking about not only pass rushing and developing pass rushing moves, but setting the edge and defending the run, which is really a big part of his game. I know everybody focuses on the sack numbers, but he is a great edge setter, and that's important in terms of trying to contain, these spread outside-in attacks that most people are trying to deal with at the collegiate level. So Bain brings a maturity, a physical foundation, and a balance and completeness that, again, it's hard to imagine that he's not going to see the field relatively early based on that skill set. Reminds me a little bit seeing him in person a few years after of Acheampong, who we watched at the high school level, and then of course at Miami this year. From a frame perspective and from a game perspective, he's a more mature and strong Acheampong at the same stage. So I think that screams early playing time, because I think Acheampong was like a freshman All-American a couple years ago. So yeah, I think that's the kind of impact we'll see from Rueben Bain.
Wow, I love that. And I know at Sports Illustrated, you guys do like your whole ranking system just really based more on the actual fundamentals versus all this math that the other services use. And like one of my complaints has been, how 24/7 and on 3 and these guys, like how is Bain only a 4-star? But John, in that world, it's still possible for him to earn a 5th star, correct? If he really turns even more heads here at Under Armour.
Yeah, this is kind of last call, right? This is the last full impression. Obviously, from a Friday night's perspective at Miami Central, he's done about everything you could have asked him to do. He's broken sack records. He's won state championships. He's dominated IMG Academy. There's really not much you could have asked for from a varsity perspective, but this perspective provides more one-to-one competition with Power 5 guys. I mean, he's going against Lucas Simmons, who's going to Florida State. He's going against Florida Gator commitments. He's going against legitimate Power 5 SEC, ACC type players on every single rep, and he's more than holding his own along the way. So I think, yeah, this is last call. And it's a different evaluation. It's a different level of competition because every single player you go against is going to go to school for free, which is not always the case, of course, on Friday nights.
So we're going to talk more about Miami signees and commits who are out there. Obviously, joining Rueben Bain, I should say, is Robert Stafford. He is there. Cormani McClain, who's not signed, he is a Miami commit. He is there, and Francis Mauigoa, Collins, and Acheampong were invited. They're not participating in the on the field stuff. So we have a lot to get to, and I've got to get John's take because he's been out there. Can he give me some Cormani McClain clues? Good or bad? Can he give me some clues? We'll talk about that right after we talk about the awesome folks at LinkedIn Jobs. As small business owners, if you're a hiring manager, you know that success in 2023 all depends on the team members you surround yourself with. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more efficiently by matching open roles with people who have those skills, values, and experiences you need to help you achieve your goals. LinkedIn Jobs helps you quickly attract qualified candidates to open jobs with targeting tools. They go beyond resume data by using insights from your job post, company, and their 875 million member profiles to put your posts in front of the most qualified candidates. LinkedIn Jobs makes it easy to screen and rate applicants based on your job qualifications, all on one platform, by the way. I've gotten jobs through LinkedIn Jobs before, guys, so I can tell you this works. And it's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number one in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to and faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes part of your day. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. We're joined by the Director of Football Recruiting at Sports Illustrated, John Garcia Jr. John, I know you were out there at Media Day late last week when Cormani McClain, he was the only guy to decline interviews, but he did, before declining interviews, he did reaffirm his Miami commitment. How did that go down?
Well, we were just, talking to him when he walked in. First of all, asking, hey, what's the plan for today? And he was like, yeah, I definitely do not want to talk fully. And I said, okay, well, are we still labeling you as a Miami commitment here going forward? That's really all I'm curious about. And he goes, oh, yeah, for sure. And then he did some photos and he posed throwing up the U and all of those things. So I think there's certainly some solace to take away in that regard, that part of his introduction. And look, he's nervous. He clearly doesn't want to deal with a lot of this, but that part of it was a very snap, instinctual kind of, oh yeah, that's not a part of what I'm trying to figure out, at least in how he presented it to us. I thought that was interesting. Obviously, again, the moment he doesn't sign on the 21st, you see Deion Sanders on Instagram. You hear, what about Alabama? What about all of these other schools that maybe missed on a top target? Florida was certainly the favorite at one point. So you wonder, just from a kind of classic perspective, does that mean someone else is in it? But again, since that point, I think we've gathered that there's a lot more going on behind the scenes, a lot of T's to cross and I's to dot. So I think it's a broader issue than maybe it's being presented in certain areas. So understand him not wanting to dig into all of that. And he still might be learning about a lot of those circumstantial kind of deals. So I think, after that point, though, he was kind of at ease. At the practices, he's loose, he's having fun. He's talking crap. He's playing well. He's kind of doing the alpha corner stuff that you would expect without the microphones in his face. So that was good to see as well.
Yeah. I saw a certain publication put out a very clickbait type article with like Alabama signees who are out there, kind of trying to recruit Cormani. But I've seen some footage, John, where it looks like he's been pretty cozy out there with Miami signees like Stafford and Rueben Bain. Have you seen anything like that? Any of that talk that he's been doing out there? Does it look like he's been talking with potential future teammates at Miami?
Yeah, he has. He's been linking up with Bain plenty, and he's working in the same secondary as Robert Stafford. I think it's Team Speed versus Team Phantom, if you're going to watch that game on January 3rd. So yeah, they're working in the same backfield together. Stafford's working safety. Cormani's obviously working at corner this week, so they've had to communicate plenty, and yeah, they've been able to chat it up and catch up a little bit. Obviously, they've taken visits to Coral Gables together there as well, and there doesn't seem to be, maybe more importantly, talking to Bain and Stafford, there doesn't seem to be as much worry from those guys, and I think that's probably a better indicator because they're more, they're more comfortable dealing with the media and understanding of all the craziness going on. So, they respect his space and don't want to speak for him, but there is some comfort there when Cormani does come up, which I thought was interesting.
Before we talk about Robert Stafford, keep it locked here on Locked On Canes, but I want to talk about the great folks at BetOnline. BetOnline is literally your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season. John mentioned we had great semifinal games. We got TCU at Georgia coming up in the final. You can look at basketball numbers, everything at betonline.net. If you love sports podcasts, you can find those as well at BetOnline. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. So you mentioned Robert Stafford, Miami signee at cornerback, who I think is one of the more under the radar players, John, considering how highly Stafford is rated. Like, he's actually, some publications actually have him rated even higher than Damari Brown, who gets a lot of chatter coming from a premier program in American heritage. And I think he's obviously a great player, but I also think that Robert Stafford is a great player. What have you seen from him at Under Armour?
Yeah, he's really solid. This is my first time seeing Stafford in person. And, the back pedal is extremely fluid. He's gaining more comfort at safety, even though, he's going to be a corner at the next level and is most comfortable at corner. He's kind of taken that responsibility and said, hey, yeah, I'll go play safety because there's a lot of great corners on that roster, of course, being an All-American game. So he's really assimilated into that position extremely well. Hasn't let anything over the top that I saw. And then in one-on-one coverage, I think we saw a lot of hip fluidity with him. He had a lot of reps against Braylon James, the Notre Dame signee, top 100, I think unanimous top 100 guy out of Austin, Texas, bigger, stronger, faster type. And Stafford locked him up for an entire team session because he was working in the slot. So when he is asked to do more corner-like things, Stafford has a lot of comfort there. But, the safety stuff is intriguing. He's a smart player. He seems to play within his responsibility, very much, taking in that coaching, which is really hard to do on a short week, especially when you're theoretically changing positions. So I think the maturity of Stafford has shown itself here this week. Physically, I think he's got, some weight to put on, just like we say with Cormani and a lot of these other players. He's a little bit longer and leaner at this stage, but that's going to come with college experience anyway. But I was encouraged by both the maturity and athleticism that he's been able to display there at Under Armour. There's a lot of consistency in his game. And obviously when you're talking about DBs, that's a really important trait.
Had to ask you one more thing before we let you head out, John. Do you give Miami any shot at Nicholas Harbor?
Look, he didn't talk a ton about them in the media scrum when he got there. But when he was kind of straggling off, I was like, hey, at one point, I just one-on-one was like, look, you told me in the summer Miami was recruiting you the hardest. What changed? I was just journalistically curious. And he said, look, other people kind of met Miami from an energy standpoint, which makes sense, right? This is the fastest kid in the country, 6'5", 230. Just unbelievable to see him in person. So he said other schools just kind of caught up to him, and then he just started setting visits. And he's a kid who's really going to allow the visits to dictate his recruitment because there's so many elements to this recruitment, right? Football, track, within football, what position? Academics. I mean, he wants to be a surgeon, right? So there's so many
I did not know that.
elements.
Wow.
Yeah, so many elements to the visits that he has to dig into. And he just hadn't visited Miami. That's really the only difference between the Canes and these other schools. So I said, okay, is it possible? He said he looked me in the eye and was like, look, it's going to be tough, right? Because January for him is Under Armour All-America Week. Track season begins, and he's already got one visit set to Oregon the final weekend of January. So Miami would have to grab a trip kind of out of the blue. But he said it is something under consideration. So it's one of those really simple scenarios. If he visits Miami, game on. If he doesn't, there's just no way with what he is looking for that he'll be able to consider the Canes there at the 11th hour. But at the same time, he is not locked in on signing and committing February 1st. So this could be
Really?
a recruitment. Yeah, this could be a recruitment that potentially goes further. You know, he really at different points this week has seemed like he is not quite ready to make that final call, which has created some Oregon confidence since they're getting that final visit. And he has already been out there once before. So
Huh.
that's going to be a fascinating recruitment to follow all the way through, both from a where's he going perspective and, of course, a timeline perspective when a kid is that busy and has that many schools still trying to get him on campus.
Well, if you see him again, tell him that if I need surgery, I will be more than happy to let him perform it. If that helps, like if that can be like that'll be my way of NIL. Like, hey, bro, perform my surgery. Hopefully, I don't need anything anytime soon. But he will be my go-to guy.
You got it, Donna, of course.
Yeah, I appreciate it. John Garcia Jr. Follow him on Twitter at John Garcia_Jr. Check out his awesome work at Sports Illustrated, where he's the director of football recruiting. John, Happy New Year. Have a wonderful rest of your week coming up.
Likewise, my friend. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, everyone. We'll talk to you again tomorrow on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.